Welcome back to the Minty Mobile Games Podcast, and this is episode 5, if I'm not incorrect. And we again have our esteemed guest, your friend Jacob. Welcome back, your friend Jacob.
They said it couldn't happen. That lightning couldn't strike twice. That two indie gaming aficionados couldn't be contained in one podcast more than once. But to all the Mint citizens around the world, make no mistake about it. Your friend Jacob on the Minty Mobile Games Podcast is back. Welcome, everybody.
And that is the exact reason why Jacob has returned. Is that little I can't top that. I don't even know how to follow up with that. That was literally perfect. Mint citizens, I love it. The city is flourishing because of your introduction. Wow, the applause, I can hear him already.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mint citizens all around the world.
Yeah. And for people who may have missed our first episode, who are you? Just a short introduction. What do you do? And why are you here?
Good. All right. I will keep it much shorter than the last episode. I know I went very long with the introduction.
But it was needed.
Well, I mean, I think so as well. But
yeah,
let's see. My name is Your Friend Jacob. I am on primarily YouTube. I am a quote-unquote content creator centered around indie gaming and indie games specifically. Mostly indie games. I might dabble into a fan game every once in a while and things like that. But, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube, and I make YouTube videos, mostly list videos regarding games you should be hyped about, games you might not have heard, and games that you definitely want to be on your radar. And the reason I'm here is because we share a love of indie gaming, whether it is on mobile or PC or console. And I have started to play games on mobile a lot more frequently now. And I feel like it's a great opportunity to be on, talk to the Mint citizens, and talk indie gaming in and outside of mobile.
The Mint citizens is definitely going to stick. I can already tell. So brilliant idea. And thank you for that introduction. And like Jacob said, we appreciate indie games, and we're going to be touching on those in a little bit. But first, we thought it would be a cool thing to talk about on comparing iOS to Android. The old debate, basically the Xbox versus PlayStation kind of thing going on. And we were just kind of wanting to talk about the pros and cons of each, what we personally enjoy, because I personally haven't had an Android in years. I have succumbed to the Apple ecosystem, so to speak, for the past few years. And I know, Jacob, you use an Android device, correct?
That is right.
All right. And so I guess we can just delve right in, and then we can just take it and go with the flow. And then after we talk about this subject, just for the listeners out there, we will be kind of talking about what we've been playing personally, regardless of the platform. So we'll talk about some mobile games, talk about some console games. I'm sure some PC games too, because that's the indie games ecosystem. And then we will also talk about Apex Legends Mobile. So those are the things that are coming up, so you guys can skip to that if you are not interested in this. But all right, so I guess I will hand it over to you, Jacob. What do you love about Android specifically from your experience?
All right, so by the way, I just want to come from this saying that I respect both Android and iOS. I've used a iPad before, so I have a little bit of experience with both. And regardless of whatever platform you're on, it's great. This is not a big grudge match, but
Amen.
So with that out of the way, I have a collection of pros for Android. The first one is that you have more devices at more price points in the ecosystem of Android. You have different manufacturers, you have different specialties, you have gaming specific phones, and this is a different point, but it also ties in. You have premium gaming phones coming out from the likes of ROG and other companies with like boatloads of RAM, ridiculous screens, super high refresh rates, custom programs to maximize performance and things like that, like pop out triggers and stuff. Really cool stuff going on there. And because it's at more price points, it's an easier vehicle to get in for more people. You see in a lot of regions that Android is more adopted than iOS, particularly in places like India, for example. There is a huge Android market there. And, with more phones at more price points, you can kind of get your feet wet, see if you like the mobile gaming space, and upgrade down the road. I like the used market for Android. I think it's underrated, but I don't think that's a pro because honestly, the used market for iOS is pretty good too. So,
True.
moving on with my next pro is you have the ability to sideload and use APK files. And so what makes it really good for Android in that regard is you can purchase games on other storefronts. So I mentioned in the previous podcast I was on itch.io or itch.io.
And I'm so jealous, by the way. Yeah.
Right. So you can purchase games on itch.io and you'll get the PC version. And if there is an Android version, you'll get the Android version as well via a downloadable APK file. You can just add that APK file to your phone and then install it and then run the game and you're all set and ready to go. So I love that. Like there are games like Slice and Dice. So I play Slice and Dice primarily on my phone, but I also have it on PC. So I get the benefits of both for the price of one. The Love series. Love 3 is not out on mobile yet. It's coming down the road, but Love 1 and Love 2 are some of the best platformers of all time. Games like Golf Peaks that I highly recommend, stuff like that you can get on itch.io. Moving on, we have more available form factors. I hinted at this before, but there is a huge Android gaming handheld market brewing up. I mean, it's not just the Steam Deck. Now, at that price point, the Steam Deck is king, but at lower price points, you can get some devices like the not the Aya Neo, the Ein Odin is one of the devices that is gaining popularity, and these are basically handhelds, kind of Switch Lite form factors with built-in control, so you don't have any kind of Android latency that you may or may not feel, which tends to be game dependent from my experience.
I agree.
But with onboard controls, you don't feel that latency at all because you don't have any Bluetooth latency. And you can kind of have a better form factor experience, sometimes active cooling, which can be nice.
Absolutely nuts too.
There are other brands as well, like Powkitty. I wish I was making that up, but that is a brand name that has Android gaming handhelds. A lot of these come from China. Not all of them do. Some of them come from, I believe, Eastern Europe as well. And they're just really, it's an intriguing market because it's kind of a mobile and Switch hybrid kind of experience. You get the more variety of the mobile space because there's just so many games on mobile, but you get kind of that form factor of that Switch Lite form factor that just feels really nice in your hand. And a lot of people are really used to touchscreens, and touchscreen controls have gotten better and better with time. But onboard controls for a lot of people are still the way to go. I know for me it is. And I'm trying to get out of that as much as I can, but as of right now, onboard controls definitely rule for me on the mobile space. So you kind of get that. The next one that I have is arguably the biggest one, in my opinion, and that is emulation. So
100%.
If you're into retro gaming, and if you are able to and can kind of go through the process of starting emulation on your phone, it is a wonderful time, okay? And it's really not that hard. You have programs like RetroArch or Lemeroy that'll kind of just set things up mostly for you.
Yeah.
And phones are getting more and more powerful, and you can emulate more and more systems. I know on my phone, I can emulate up through PSP, N64, that kind of stuff flawlessly. And I have an old phone, so
my personal favorite By the way, just to interject for a second, my personal favorite to emulate on mobile devices, at least when I had my Android tablet, was a Nintendo DS because you have that touchscreen functionality. And
Yeah.
so, other than the actual hardware itself, I feel like it's best at home on an Android device, which
And
is really cool.
I'm glad you mentioned that because if I had money to afford a good phone, part of me would really consider getting something like a Z Flip or Z Fold just because I would want to
Oh my
emulate
word.
DS
I
on it.
didn't even think about that. That is
Yeah.
genius.
And emulating things like original Game Boy is actually really good with the touchscreen because it's not a ton of buttons. Games are a bit simpler, things like that. So, running a little NES Tetris or not NES Tetris, Game Boy Tetris with touchscreens, not a bad experience. And beyond that, you can also do ROM hacks and things like that. Like for me, there is a ROM hack of the Game Boy version of Tetris that adds hard drops. And honestly,
Oh my
probably
goodness.
it's
That sounds
probably the
great.
best version of Tetris for mobile if you consider emulation to count for that. Because I don't know about you, but I found Tetris-like experiences to be a bit surprisingly lacking on
Oh,
mobile.
yes. I
Um,
completely agree. I'm a Tetris junkie. It's like one of my favorite games of all time. Like I always am playing Tetris, and there is not a good Tetris. I'd wager to say that some of the worst Tetrises on mobile is the official versions of Tetris
100%.
by EA, and I just think the touchscreen controls they use for those just feel wonky. It's not accurate. You're not able to fully exhibit your skills that you've learned over time on other devices. And then with the tactile controls, like the kind of Tetris ripoffs that have like controls on the touchscreen, they often feel super janky and not responsive too. So
Right.
I completely agree with you. It sounds like that is the definitive mobile version of Tetris without a doubt.
And as a very quick aside, one game that I wish was on mobile and maybe down the road is a game called Mixoloomia. It is a sort of new way of looking at Tetris style platformers and match 3 type things. It is its own experience. It's an evolution of the genre and I love it. Look up Mixolumia. If you have a PC to play it on, go ahead and play it on that. But maybe reach out to the developer and gauge interest on a potential mobile port because I think it would thrive
That
on
sounds
mobile.
incredible, by the way.
And
I will definitely check that out immediately after we finish wrapping up the podcast, without a
oh,
doubt.
and it's a good like audio visual experience too. There's great music that you can swap from. There's color palettes, all that kind of stuff, and um, I will be mentioning a game with swappable color palettes later, foreshadowing. But I love a good color palette swap. So,
Yeah.
um, but on top of that, um, you have the ability to have custom launchers. So there's some customizability on iOS for sure, and I can get into that a little bit on the iOS side. But with Android, you have these custom launchers that you can make your phone function however you want. You want your Android phone to function like an iPhone? There's a launcher for that. You want your phone to function like an Android TV or a console like experience? There's a launcher for that. And it's great because like the way that I will play games sometimes is I will have an Android TV launcher just as an app, not as my default launcher. I'll go into that so that I can just cycle through all of my apps using a controller so that when my phone is plugged into the TV, it just feels like a console. And
Mm.
that experience is so great to just completely consoleize your phone. You also have the ability to do things like if you have a Samsung phone, you have Samsung DeX, which essentially just when you launch it and plug it into a monitor or TV, it makes your phone function like a desktop. It's like a desktop. It kind of feels like Windows, but
Hmm.
it's Android. And that's really cool. Like if you wanted to use your phone as a desktop. I've never found a use for DeX, but I know people who have, and so that's always cool. And there's other versions of DeX for other types of phones. And that's really the main thing on the pros of Android. Before I kind of get into the cons, I think that'll probably be mostly covered by some of the pros for iOS. So why don't we shoot it back over to you as somebody who has a lot more experience with iOS devices?
Oh, for sure. And that's how I was feeling when you were mentioning the pros of Android is they are honestly the cons of iOS. And so it's pretty funny because me and Jacob did not compare notes with each other before. This is very natural. We are literally experiencing this conversation and all of the subjects for the first time interacting with one another, which is the vibe I like to set with the podcast. And literally every one of them lines up with mine. So anyways, so the perks of iOS, in my opinion, I wrote this number one, but I don't necessarily think it's number one, but it's dang close. Is the convenience of connecting all of the Apple devices that you may own together. And then it just has an ease of access with your Apple passwords all linked to one account. You can seamlessly move from one device to another. There's also just a lot of quality of life improvements, such as like it'll automatically copy and paste something from your messages without you having to go into that. Apple's all about making everything as smooth and as convenient and simple as possible. And I really do like how all their devices connect, especially with AirPods and the Apple Watch, which I know that is available to a degree on Android, but I feel like it's just so fluid and so easy. I think the key word is easy here. And then another one, I do like the App Store a bit more than the Google Play Store, just for the simple fact that it is a little bit more regulated, and keyword is little. It's just a little bit more regulated than the Android Store, which I could also see that being a con as well, because the Google Play Store has so many more games that aren't available on that, and we can delve into that con later on. And then I do like the free software that comes with your iPhone. I'm biased because I have literally used nothing but iMovie. Jacob and I, off of this podcast, have talked about me needing to learn to edit eventually with another program. But I do like GarageBand. I do like iMovie. I think they're solid programs that can really get you far without actually having to invest into something different. So I do like the software that comes pre-built in the phone. And I also just the simplicity of the UI itself. And this is probably just because I've had this for so long, and it's just whatever you learn first becomes the most comfortable, or whatever you spend the more time with, you just become casual with it, and that's just the way it is. But I really do like the UI of Apple, and sometimes they do change it up once or twice or every now and then with certain updates, and it might not be the best, but everything just has like basic laws to it when it comes to the UI. Everything's simple to understand, simple to utilize. So in a nutshell, iOS is just very fluid, very simple, very easy, and I like how they all connect together. So, and if I miss
100%.
any, feel free to input some too, because that's just the main things that came to my mind.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you covered the main points. There's a couple that I think definitely are pro iOS, and you're spot on about the user experience. Much more streamlined, definitely more intuitive, especially like once you get in that ecosystem. I think
Hmm.
it's harder to get out of that ecosystem once you're in it, because
Exactly.
everything just becomes muscle memory because it is so intuitive. The
Hmm.
the other things I would say that are pro for iOS is iOS has the best tablet experience by far.
Wow, I
Um,
didn't even think about that.
the There are Android tablets. There are definitely
Hmm.
some cheap Android tablets if you don't have enough money,
Very cheap.
which is okay. And if you are a tinkerer, I would recommend getting a Amazon Fire tablet, and then just you know, I won't tell anybody, but you can get rid of the Amazon stuff in there and just turn it into a regular Android tablet. Look up ETA Prime, the YouTube channel, if that's what you want to do. So if you need a cheaper tablet to potentially do a little bit of gaming on, that's probably your best bet. But for price to performance, you can get a base iPad for like $280, and it plays pretty much everything. It might not play everything at 60 FPS, but it will be a minimum 30, and it'll be a stable 30, and it'll be a high resolution. And it's just a better bang for your buck in terms of the tablet experience. I think it's arguable for the phone side of things because it just depends on what you want. But I don't
Hmm.
think it's arguable on the tablet side. I think Android is severely lacking and just overall behind iOS when it comes to the overall tablet experience.
I'm so happy that you said that and mentioned that because this is what I actually do have experience in is with Android tablets. I've had a few in my day, and then I currently have an iPad as well, and that is completely correct. Like there's even though like the specs of certain Android tablets seem very impressive, they don't run as well as you think they would with certain applications.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it is. I'm not a technical guy, but it just as an example, with back when Fortnite mobile was a thing, the mobile scene for Fortnite was actually huge. They would have mobile specific pro tourneys, mobile specific cash cups and tournaments, and the players would exclusively, not one of them, like I think maybe one outlier, but almost all of them used Apple tablets because Android tablets couldn't hold a candle to it. And like you said, it's very interesting to see how iPhones are honestly overpriced for what you get, but then the iPad, the bang for the buck for your buck is insane. Like their base iPad model that releases every year is incredibly good. It's very affordable for what you get, in my opinion, and it's an absolute steal, honestly. And like you said, you can buy it and you can have confidence knowing that you can literally play any game on it. Period. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of how fluid you want that game to play, but it will play fluid to a degree. So
That's right.
I'm glad you
The
glad you mentioned that.
and then the next point I think for iOS is Apple Arcade is the far superior subscription service. And
Yes.
in my opinion, it's not even close. When you look at Apple Arcade versus Google Play Pass, Apple Arcade, like $5 a month, and you get some original games. You get some games like Fantasian. I think it's Book of Demons or World of Demons, which is by Platinum.
Hmm.
Um, you have, I think Oceanhorn 2 was Apple
Yes.
Arcade to start with, and it may still. I think it's Apple Arcade and Switch is where you can get
Yeah.
Oceanhorn 2. And there are other games that are either exclusive to Apple Arcade or enhanced for Apple Arcade. And to me, that is a tremendous value and pretty quality curation, I would say. Whereas Google Play Pass is just it's the difference between getting something from a restaurant that is from a chef that is passionate, and they might give you a smaller plate, but that plate was made with love and care and quality ingredients, and you're going to remember it. Where Google Play Pass is just a giant plate of just whatever food shoveled on there and shoveled into your face, where it's like, it'll get you full, but you're probably not gonna remember it, and you might remember it for the wrong reasons.
Your analogies are always so spot on. I do enjoy Apple Arcade. I think it passed my mind because they came out strong the first 1 to 2 years
Mhm.
of the Apple Arcade being available with exclusives. It was pretty impressive. I was like, how are they going to keep this up? Like this isn't nuts. And I feel like they've kind of almost shifted focus into picking up projects that may have been canceled previously or games that weren't going to really make it to market without uh, Apple Arcade kind of helping them out and putting them on the service themselves. But they've really been focusing as of late to just provide more value for subscribers and adding already existing games on the App Store, not necessarily making them exclusive to Apple Arcade, but throwing them in. So certain premium games or experiences that are already on the App Store and throwing them into Apple Arcade to add more value for the subscriber.
Mhm.
Which I definitely, it's nuts how many games you get with Apple Arcade now. There's no doubt that it brings a ton of value now. I just know that the main complaint now is where are the exclusives? They're coming in at an absolute trickle at this point. Like the most recent one for me was Fantasian, and that was the standout of last year. But other than that, there wasn't that many. Maybe four exclusives added to the service. So, but yeah, I completely agree with you. I've actually never checked out the Google Play Store's version of Apple Arcade at all. So
it's okay, right? I think it's similarly priced, but it's basically just like a bunch of popular games, and you have the ability to download them if you want at no additional
gotcha.
cost. And so it's like great, but if you're really into Stardew Valley on mobile, you probably already have it. And if you're
Hmm.
into, things like I don't know if Minecraft is on Google Play Pass. I know Stardew is, but games along that kind of vein, Monument Valley 2,
Hmm.
like you probably already have them. So
It's
then
true.
it's kind of unclear what the value is of Google Play Pass because you're going to be given a wide swath of games that you could play, but I think it's almost overwhelming. Like, what do I choose next? Where do I go? Like,
Yeah.
you get so overwhelmed. I mean, I experience this with my backlog sometimes where, um,
Oh,
like
relatable.
I'm actually really happy that I am a content creator now because it has forced me to organize and prioritize my backlog because before there'd be many times where I'd be done with a game and I'd be like, "Okay, now what?" Like now I have all of these choices and I have no idea what to spend a finite amount of time on. Do I play this amazing game? Do I play that amazing game? I have no idea. And with Google Play Pass, it kind of feels like that where it's just giving you everything, but it's not anything special. It's not anything extra. It's not anything exclusive. It's just like it's kind of like a well, you do the work kind of
Hmm.
scenario, and
True.
it feels like a hands-off experience, and I don't really think it's worth it. I mean, I guess if the only gaming peripheral you have is an Android phone or tablet, and you have no ability to play any of these other games, and you're kind of newer to gaming. I
Yeah.
could see maybe a few months of Google Play Pass being worth it for you, but I can't see it even as a viable long-term subscription. It's not, it's like, it doesn't feel like it's day and date either. It's not like a Game Pass situation where with Game Pass, you get exclusive games and you get other games day and date from a number of different budgets and sizes. You don't really get that with Google Play Pass. I definitely agree with Apple Arcade. It's a bit of a trickle for the exclusives. Um, but I guess I still have to give them some credit for having any kind of value add and not just being like, give us money and here you go kind of
Very
thing.
true.
Um, although, yeah, I definitely would agree it's getting a little bit closer to that. But there have been some really interesting experiences. I hope they get a little bit back to kind of what they did with games like Exit the Gungeon, where
Hmm.
Exit the Gungeon launched on Apple Arcade, and it was kind of like an early access
Yeah.
where it was like 2/3 of the way done, but you could still do so much with Exit the Gungeon. It's a great roguelike. Enter the Gungeon is my favorite roguelike of all time.
I
Please
did
don't
not know that. That's
please
awesome.
don't attack me if your favorite roguelike is Isaac or Slay the Spire or Dead Cells. Those games are great. I have no issues with them. It's just my
How dare you
favorite.
not mention Hades? They're gonna come after you, man.
I
Just
know.
kidding.
Well,
Just kidding.
I mean, confession, I have not played Hades yet. So,
Oh my goodness,
I know.
Jacob. I'm gonna reprimand you after this.
I
I'm not
know.
kidding.
I know. It's bad. I still have to get back into Hades. I wanted to go through the Supergiant catalog first. So, I've played
Ooh, that's a good
Bastion.
place to start.
I've
Yeah.
played Bastion. I've played Transistor.
Okay, good.
I have Pyre. So that's next.
Hmm.
And then after Pyre, I will play Hades. So
I'm
if
glad you're giving
we,
Pyre a chance. I feel like that one's overlooked.
I mean, it
Out
sounds
of their
perfect for me.
catalog. Yeah.
The basketball like gameplay and the fantasy setting. I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that. Um,
Yeah.
and it looks great. I've always wanted to play it, and now I'm slowly getting there. I'll be playing Pyre soon, and I'm sure I'll love it. And then I'm sure I'll love Hades as well. I just haven't gotten to it. I've played Isaac. I've played Dead Cells. Those games are great. And shout out, like I said, your review and video on Foregone is an underrated one in my opinion. So if anyone's
Hmm.
listening who hasn't checked that out, check out that video as well. And and I'm not going to get back into fanning out about Slice and Dice, but if you have access to play that game, please play that game, and also play Dicey Dungeons, because that game, I think Dicey Dungeons might be my second favorite roguelike of all time. So,
Yeah, Dicey
and
Dungeons. I got into the Apple test flight for it, and so
oh,
I've been testing it right now for him and giving him feedback, and it came out of the gate ready, in my opinion. We'll put it
has
that way.
have
It
have
is
you been
incredible.
punished by it yet?
That's an understatement, Jacob. That's an incredible understatement. It's a fantastic experience. It's the epitome of I can do better this next time, or I've got to play it one more time. I can definitely get farther. Oh, that's a cool synergy, so to speak, or a cool strategy that I can
Oh
utilize
yeah.
the next run, kind of thing. So
I mean,
I've definitely been enjoying it.
to put it in even more context for my love for the game, I have officially played it for 58 hours. So,
Wow.
that, and honestly, if I could forget everything that I played and do it over again, I would. Um,
well, well
and
said.
I wish there were more updates and stuff, but that's not Terry Kavanagh. That's not how that developer operates, and they're better for it. I mean, they made VVVVVV, which is
I
kind
always
of
forget that.
it's an indie hit. They made
Hmm.
Super Hexagon. That's another good one.
An
So,
man, just banger after banger. Wow.
and then
I always forget.
they've dabbled in Roblox. They do all these interesting, like Terry does such amazing projects, and it's all like one and done. And I respect
Yep.
that, right? Like, I know as a selfish side, I would want like, oh, I want Dicey Dungeons 2 and 3 and Super Hexagon 2. But like, I got to respect that every project they go into, it's like, I'm going to do something completely different, and it's going to be on its own, and it's just going to be really really good and complete, and then I'm just going to move on and ride into the sunset. And
Yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah, I think it has to do with, like, that artist or creator perspective, where you just got to go where the inspiration strikes and do what you still have passion for. And so you can't force something. Uh, and obviously he's just going with the flow, which is great.
Oh, and how good is that music in Dicey?
Oh man, so catchy, dude. I find myself like humming it or like imitating it after I've already closed out of the app. So that,
Shout out to
yeah,
Chipsel. Check out Chipsel's solo
hmm,
work too, and work for other games as well. So
completely
so good, and yeah, amazing.
amazing, amazing. Wow, then we're already touching on the indie games, man. We don't even need the cons. Just kidding. But
Well,
I
I mean,
think we've
the
all,
cons kind of speak for themselves, right?
yeah,
And one last shout out to iOS, because I don't want to Android fanboy too much, because I love Android because I am a tinkerer. Like, I like messing with stuff. I like kind of
hmm,
breaking things down, which is why I like emulation. And that's why I like PC, because I like settings on settings on settings. But iOS, now Android has been better about this recently, but they're still behind. iOS has more long-term software support. Like, I think it's like the
that's true.
iPhone SE got like the latest iOS update. Like, I mean, you can't say that for older phones. Now, the Google Pixel phones are starting to have longer term support and things like that, but that's recent. That's like as soon as a year and a half ago that Google
Hmm.
started doing more longer term software support. Samsung is following suit, because that's how it goes. Samsung does something, Google does something, vice versa. And a lot of times if you do get a cheaper Android phone, you're likely going to get, maybe some security updates, but you're probably not going to get the next Android update.
Exactly.
And while that might not be a deal breaker, like, for example, my dad uses a Google Pixel 1 from all the way back 2015, 2016. Phone works perfectly fine for him. It's a phone. Like,
Hmm.
he needs a phone, and he needs to check his emails, right? And
Yeah,
it works great, but it's not on the latest version of Android. Um and there might be some issues with, with games and stuff. If you were playing on an older phone and into games, I do have to give Apple credit in supporting their phones for a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and very valid perspective that I think people in the Apple ecosystem really take for granted, to the degree where they're just like, "Wait, my iPhone 5 is not my iPhone 5S isn't supported anymore? Are you kidding me? Like what is going on?" Like it's to that degree. So that's a really good point. And like I said, just to fanboy over Android, I think you've already touched on it beautifully. The customization and the individuality that you can give your Android phone, I'm always jealous about it. And the main thing that I really am envious about Android is the ability to enter different storefronts, download apps, games, things from all parts of the web instead of just staying to one little monopoly, such as the App Store on the iPhone. So,
Absolutely,
but yeah,
and with emulation,
mhm.
you know, we're able to emulate PS2 on phones now, and honestly, it's not going to be that much longer, in my opinion. Probably, let's say 2 years, maybe 3, that we're going to be emulating Switch on phones, like more
Oh
powerful phones, but
man,
it's coming, and
oh without a doubt.
that's going to be a wild time to be able to emulate Switch on your phone.
Yeah,
Not advocating for, I'm advocating for you to use your own game files and backups. Just, I don't want to get anybody on this
exactly.
podcast in trouble. But, you know, if you want to emulate, go for it. I will not stop you. I emulate games myself. Shout out to I played a few different games recently. I've been going through the Wario series.
Oh, Wario Land. Is
Yes.
that nice? I love
Yes.
that series. On the original, did you start with the original Game
I
Boy?
did. I did.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Underrated, really underrated. And yeah, they're all great. And I would love to see another 2D Wario. I think the last 2D Wario we got was like
Was on the Game Boy
Wario Land.
Advance,
I
wasn't it?
think it was Wario Land Shake It on the Wii.
Oh yeah, Shake It, because was that a mini games or
No,
no?
that's
No,
WarioWare.
that's WarioWare. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. But Shake
Wow.
It was a 2D Wario platformer with a lot of classic Wii Remote waggle controls. So I think that's the last one we got.
And probably because of those waggle controls.
Yeah.
That I'm glad you mentioned those because those are always overlooked. And the first one was actually just a spin-off of Super Mario Bros. Like I think it was still
Hmm.
labeled Super Mario Bros. 3, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I believe it's Super Mario Land 3,
yeah, Mario
I
Land. That's
believe.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, those games are incredible, and they only get better. Like the Game Boy Color one is definitely a standout for me.
Hmm.
And the Game Boy Advance one is really good as well.
Yep.
So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. What else are you playing other than those?
Okay, so on the mobile side of things, it is not as much as last time. One, because I am still obsessed with Slice and Dice, and I won't stay too far on that. Please check out the previous podcast if you want me to talk about it for like what felt like half an hour. Maybe I went a tiny bit too far. You be the judge. It's still really, really good. I love that game. If you are on Android or on PC, please play it. It's so good. I play it basically every night before I go to sleep. It's just perfect for that. But I have played an iOS game recently that recently
Really?
came out that you have covered on your channel, and everyone should go watch your content on this game. It is none other than Nightskate.
Hey, I was going to talk about that one too. That's perfect. So, what is Nightskate?
So Nightskate is kind of like an endless runner with amazing color palettes, amazing pixel art, really good music, and it is a one button control game. You're trying to get combos, you're trying not to fall down pits, you're jumping on birds, you're jumping on cones, you're jumping on rails to grind, all that kind
Squirrels.
of stuff. Yeah,
Grinding
exactly.
on logs. Yeah.
That's right. And it has a quality that will hook you to want to play. And I want to give I know I do analogies on here, and some of them land, some of them do not. I don't know if this one will land, and I don't mean it for it to be a negative thing. I mean this in the most endearing way possible. It felt like the best possible evolution of like the Google search engine game when you don't have internet.
Oh my
The
word.
dinosaur game.
Yeah, the dinosaur game.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
Yep.
felt like if it felt like a next gen version of that. And honestly, to the point now where they should just replace the dinosaur game on Google with like a pared down version of Nightskate. So
You've heard
anybody
it
at
here, Google.
Google,
Yeah.
yeah, anybody at Google listening and watching the podcast. And if not, if Google's not interested, listen, any search engine, if it's DuckDuckGo or if it's Ecosia or Quant, don't ask me
All
why I
right,
know
Bing, this
about
is your time to
Bing.
shine. Yeah.
Exactly. If Bing puts Nightskate on their search engine, I will use Bing, and it's the only reason I would use Bing.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh man, I just
get on it.
Nightskate is an absolute gem. The best way I could nutshell it for anyone who hasn't played it or isn't familiar with it is that it takes like the classic mobile game formula, the simple one-touch control, the addictive high score nature of something, and they just perfect it while also adding more depth with what you can do with that one button control. Because like Jacob mentioned, you're going to be grinding on things, jumping off of things, doing combos. So there is some strategy, there is a skill ceiling with it, and it, like you said, it's a total package when it comes to sound design, art design, level design, just the amount of color palettes too. If you're a color palette junkie, this is the game for you. There are beautiful color palettes that completely give the game its own feeling. Like you just feel like you're playing a new game when you swap the color palette. It's that integral to the experience, at least for me. My personal favorite was the original Game Boy Green that I mentioned in my review as well. That color palette really sent me back too. But an absolute gem of a mobile game. I think it is a must buy for anyone who enjoys high score chasers or those simple button auto runners. Anything of that jazz, if it's up your alley, you need to just go purchase this game. Don't even look at the infographics or anything. Just buy it. It's that good.
That's right. And if you haven't seen the Min City coverage of Nightskate, go do that. After this podcast, go do it as you're buying Nightskate because you're gonna like it. But just pay attention to the content too because it's
Yeah.
really good.
Jacob's my best plug. He's the advertisement man. He plugs my channel for me. What a friend. That's what I'm talking about. But what else are you playing? Anything else? Is that the two on mobile at least?
So that is what I have for mobile. I have some for PC if you want me to talk about those really quick.
Oh, for sure. Delve into them. You have quality for your mobile. I'm sure you've got quality for your PC.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of games that are more well known, a couple of games that I think more people should know about. I'm going to start with an older game and then go newer and newer as I go on.
Okay.
So the game I most recently finished is none other than Skatebird. And if you haven't heard of Skatebird, it is one of my favorite skateboarding games of all time now. It is what the name says. You're skateboarding, but instead of being Tony Hawk, you are possibly a literal hawk named Tony. And there's everything that you want in a skateboarding game here with Skatebird. You got collectibles, you got combos and tricks, you got customizability, endless different kinds of birds and colors, customizable skate decks and wheels. You have collectible tapes. And so if you think about like the VHS tapes from the Tony Hawk games, trying to find those and collect them, you have cassette tapes that you can collect that are full of different songs that will then add to your soundtrack. So you're literally building the soundtrack as you play the game, and it's rewarding you for exploring. You get challenges, for collecting like the word skate or different things like that. It's a very heartwarming story, like lighthearted. You're helping out somebody named Big Friend, who is presumably a human, and you are presumably their pet. without giving too much away of the story. But all of the environments are like one environment is like a bedroom, one environment is like an office setting, and there's all these cool spots and different things you can do, interesting challenges, and a really cool cast of characters that are different kinds of birds that you meet along the way who will give you challenges to either collect stuff or to just do challenges to do challenges. You know, there's a giant seagull in there. I actually have a picture on my Twitter account from my time with Skatebird. And it's just a picture of my character, another bird, and just a giant seagull behind us, but with the kind of a depth of field effect going on. It felt like an album cover. It was just really interesting. And the music's great. It's a combination of there's some lo-fi stuff, there's some punk music, there's a little bit of everything for you that you would kind of expect in a skateboarding game. It's 3D, it's great. It's a little floaty because you are a bird, but it's expected. So it's not this floatiness that detracts you. It's a floatiness that you almost immediately understand. You're like, oh yeah,
Mm.
I'm a bird with wings. Yeah, I'm going to be in the air a little bit longer. If you've ever messed with the gravity settings in Tony Hawk, you're going to be fine. Um, which I think a lot of us have. I mean, I remember turning gravity off and stuff and just doing ridiculous things in Tony Hawk. And
Hmm.
you know, on top of that, it's a complete package that has so much customizability beyond your character. The thing that really made me the most interested when playing it was the level of detail for accessibility settings. One thing that really, you know, it wasn't a deal breaker before, but it made my experience that much better was you have complete control over things like turning radius of your character and the camera, the way the camera kind of pans and follows and things like that, and its
Hmm.
turning radius. Um, and so I kind of felt like the turning was a little bit loose for me, and that could be my controller or it could be anything. And I made the turning radius a little bit tighter, and it felt miles better to play for me. I was like, this feels great. And it was just this one setting that was perfect for me. And there's so much beyond that. There are settings for like difficulty, and there are settings for all kinds of other things that you could think of. And I really appreciate the developers for really paying attention to accessibility and giving people as many settings as possible to make it as accessible, not just accessible, but approachable to as many people as possible. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Skatebird. I wish I played it more last year. I've had it since last year, but didn't really dabble much with it. Then I had more time this year and I loved it. So I can't say enough good things about Skatebird. And if you want a new skateboarding game that's in 3D to maybe go alongside your 2D skating of Night Skate, and you have a console or PC, check out Skatebird. I think you'll have a fun time with it. And take your time because you're not going to know much about what to do, but the tutorial, the early levels are really, really well done. They guide you through how to do different tricks and things like that because the movement is going to feel a little bit weird, but it's going to feel super smooth the more you go, and tweak your turning radius and things like that. If it just doesn't feel quite right, you'll probably find some settings that'll make it feel right for you. So that's sort of my mini review spiel on Skatebird, which was good because I don't have time to make a review video for it anyway. So just consider this my review of Skatebird.
And
It's
thank you
great.
for that review, by the way, because I actually recently, and this is another shout out to that developer. I recently obtained or purchased Skatebird in another shout out, including your Twitter. If you haven't followed your friend Jacob on Twitter, this man is the most helpful dude when it comes to gaming on Twitter ever. He is constantly plugging games I've never heard about, games that are on Kickstarter or are looking to getting funded and all of that. But he included a tweet about a really cool bundle for Ukraine that itch.io was doing, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and I purchased it and it was ridiculous. Like, I had already donated before and I was like, okay, I'm done. But then he brought this up. I was like, I'd be dumb not to donate again because it is $10 and they had 1,000 games included in that bundle. And the developers obviously okayed it with itch.io and they wanted their games to be included. And Skatebird is what it's called. Skatebird was included in that. And so I saw that. That was one of the first games that as I was scrolling after I got it. Because I didn't even look at the games. I was like, this is for a good cause, and I'm sure there's something in here I can play. And Skatebird was one of them. So that is very useful to me. Now I know what to start with.
Yeah,
So.
and if anyone has purchased that bundle and has an Android phone, some of the games in that bundle do come with Android versions, so you can play some Android games as well. I believe Golf Peaks was one. I think Love 2 is one of those. And
Yes, Love
if you
2 was
haven't,
there. I've already downloaded that one. I'm ready to try it solely
and
off of your recommendation.
one of my favorite platformers of all time by one of my favorite developers of all time. Shout out to Fred Wood. I will play any game you make, including Polstario, which is underrated. Check out that game. It's different than the Love series, but Love 3 has a little bit of like almost like a shout out to Polstario with its some of its areas in specific levels.
I love when developers do that. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's a good one. And the Love series, like I said, from Love 1 to Love 3, they're just unbelievable. Like I don't want to say a game is perfect because I think that that's kind of hyperbole for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But it's everything I could want in a platformer. And you can't really go wrong with any of them. They all have great soundtracks, and again, Love 3 is coming for mobile. Probably not for a while, but it will be on mobile probably at some point, at least based on what I've seen from the developer.
Exciting.
On top of that, I got 3 more. I'll try and go a little bit faster instead of doing a full review like I did for Skatebird. The next game I have is called Retro Kart Rush. And you know what? I'm going to make a little bit of a campaign because I don't think this game has 10 reviews on Steam yet. And if you have Steam, if you have a PC, even a lower powered PC, and you got like $3 to spend, because I believe it's like $3 or maybe $4, like just get Retro Kart Rush. If you like kart racers at all, any kart racers, if you've liked in the past, get Retro Kart Rush, because I believe you need a minimum of 10 reviews on Steam to be listed as positive. And then I can't remember how many it is to be listed as very positive. But right now, it doesn't have a sort of rating next to it because it's stuck at 9 reviews, and I am one of them. And so if there's anyone out there that's remotely interested in kart racers, pick up Retro Kart Rush. The art style is kind of more on the like simpler.
It reminded me of Super Nintendo era Mario Kart.
Absolutely.
From what I saw, yet again, Jacob's Twitter is popping. I saw it off of his Twitter.
That's right. I shared a little bit of gameplay footage of my time with Retro Kart Rush, and the art style is simple but effective. It's not flashy at all, but it is everything that you would need. It has what you want in a car racer. Plenty of drifting opportunities, variety of tracks, and shortcuts, and then also items. If that is what you're looking for in a car racer, you have it with Retro Kart Rush. And there's tons of drifting, there's tons of like areas that you can find that'll make your run a little bit more efficient. Tons of difficulty settings, okay? Like I cannot stress this enough. I think there's like 5 different difficulties.
Wow.
And so if you haven't played a car racer, this might be the one to get into because you can put it all the way at the easiest setting. And I believe at the easiest setting, I think you can win without drifting. So that would be a good way to kind of just like get familiar with the controls and things like that. There's different kind of weight classes of racers. So you have like the heavy, medium, and light racers. The light with faster acceleration. I think the heavier ones have like faster top speed but slower acceleration. That kind of thing. They don't get knocked as much. The items are kind of similar to what you would see in something like Mario Kart. albeit different. Like the blue shell, I believe, is like a giant birthday cake. And, there's little differences here and there with that. But, the items you would kind of expect are there. And the soundtrack is pretty good. The tracks have good variety. There's a random cup, which I really appreciate. So that if you just want to do a cup of 3 random races, you can select random cup and then you're good to go. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately. I did all the cups and I experienced it at 2 different difficulties and felt good with that. Now I'm just trying to do random cup and then increase my difficulty over time. And it's great, especially for the price. It's a good value and it's what you would want in a kart racer. And I can recommend other kart racers as well. There's things like Super Indy karts and stuff like that. That game's still in early access. We're waiting on more updates from that, which are coming, but that game's a little bit more expensive. But both of those games are great in terms of indie car racers. And I will say, as an aside, if you play Retro Car Rush and you enjoy Retro Car Rush and you're like, wow, I guess I really do like car racers. Everybody wants to talk about Mario Kart, and I totally understand it's my favorite kart racer series, but Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed is one of the most underrated, in my opinion, kart racers. That game is amazing.
I completely agree. I think it's very overlooked.
Like Team Sonic Racing, the more recent one, that one's fine, but
not as
Sonic
good.
and All-Stars Racing Transformed is so good. Also kind of random because it has like Danica Patrick as a racer and it has like other human racers and stuff.
Some weird unlockables in that one.
Yeah, it's a little odd, but oh, it is so good. It feels a bit similar to Diddy Kong Racing in terms of the transformations and stuff. And shout out to Diddy Kong Racing, unbelievable kart racer. I would love to see a new Diddy Kong Racing. I don't think it'll happen, but I would love to see it. So moving on, I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to a platformer because I love platformers and I feel like people probably looked at my indie games of the year 2021 and were like, you really put a lot of platformers, especially 2D platformers on there. Like, you could probably put some other genres. And I did, but I can't argue with that. And I said, I believe I responded to a comment and I was telling the truth at the time. I was like, I'm going to play a huge amount of games, and I don't think I'm going to have as many 2D platformers on 2022's list. And then 2022 happened, and then a lot of really great 2D platformers came out, and now I look like a liar. So, one of those games that I really enjoyed is a game called Go Go Pogo Girl, and I have no news on if or when or whatever, if this will ever happen. No news, no information. But if it ever came to mobile, it would be a hit, in my opinion.
I saw you tweet about that, I think.
Yeah,
at some point.
I think it would be perfect. It actually was a lot more inspired by Sonic than anything. You may not see it from the gameplay. You'll definitely see it in the art style, in the music, in the overall presentation. It was actually part of the Sonic Fan Games Expo. Sage, I think, is the Sonic Amateur Games Expo. There we go. I remember things sometimes. And it was part of that. But the gameplay doesn't play anything like Sonic. It actually plays a little bit more like kind of a Commander Keen, maybe a little bit of DuckTales in there, but it's its own thing. You're on a pogo stick all of the time. So you are constantly bouncing. And you would think that would be annoying as a movement mechanic. Like, oh, that probably doesn't have much control. And to be fair, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I played the demo and I was like, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. Because you have plenty of in-air control, on-ground control. You have the ability to hold down. So if you need to quickly hold down, you can do that, which will give you a higher jump in response. There's a way to slam down. And if you slam down and bounce back up at the right time, you get extra height there. There's plenty of horizontal movement potential. And so the platforming feels really, really fun, even though you're bouncing constantly. There's tons of collectibles. There's coins. There's special coins that you can collect as well. Uh, Everything is in seasons, so there's a collection of levels, but for each season, and that will present a different presentation. I would say I love the music for all of the seasons. Visually, I really like the winter season. I don't know what it is, if it's just the way pixel art winter looks for me. Like, I can't get enough
Yeah.
of pixel art winter, It's
Hmm.
just, it's so satisfying. But there are some bosses at the end. The bosses aren't too difficult, but they give you enough challenge. And it's a very cute game. It has a little bit of a story, just enough to have one. And it's just a fun time. It was a game that I enjoyed playing at the time I did, because outside of the channel I'm going through a lot, and it's nice to play something that'll like kind of cheer you up a little bit. And Go Go Pogo Girl did that for me. It was just nice to just relax with some retro style platforming goodness. And it's retro style, but it's kind of a new-ish mechanic that's used in a unique way. And I think the developer, shout out to Ando, does this regularly. So he has a game that came out before Go Go Pogo Girl called Spear. And Spear is a platformer where if you throw your spear, it will stick into the wall and act as a platform. So you use that for vertical movement. So that's like a
Ah,
nice,
I see. I see.
it's a
Clever.
nice little twist on the 2D platformer genre. And there's more puzzle elements in Spear and stuff like that. He is working on Spear DX, but if you got the bundle for Ukraine, the original Spear is included. Go
Oh,
ahead and
wow.
play it. Yeah, go ahead and play it now, and then just play Spear DX later, because that's going to be some more content, a little bit different art style, things like that. But Spear is a great time too, so shout out to Spear.
You're
But
just adding to my backlog, Jacob. Come on, man.
right, but because it is a mobile podcast going on here, I would love to see Go Go Pogo Girl on mobile. I think it would translate to a touchscreen easily because it's minimal buttons. It would work with an on-screen joystick and a couple of buttons attached to it. It would be perfect. The art style's great. It would scale to screens really well. It kind of has that like Genesis inspired art style. Like if you've seen Genesis Sonic, like you'll feel right at home here. The color palettes are different in a really pleasing way, but the inspiration is kind of taken from that. Really vibrant, really cool. So I have no news on that. I have no ability to make it happen, but
Fingers crossed.
that's right. And I would play it again on mobile, um, with any monetization structure, premium, free to play, whatever it is. It's worth every penny as is. Shout out to Go Go Pogo Girl. And then my last one is one that is still in progress. Is I have been playing a game called Anno Mutation M, and
Mm.
that is it is a cyberpunk RPG that swaps between 2D and 3D. It's a game I think people wouldn't think I would play, because I don't talk about games like that a lot. I don't I like the cyberpunk art style, or at least art styles that are inspired by what people would think is cyberpunk, but I never really gravitate towards games like that. Like Cyberpunk 2077 came out, fine looking game, wasn't really that interested in the setting. Whereas I think
Same.
people who are into cyberpunk are all in on
Yeah.
cyberpunk, right? And that sort of
100%.
futuristic kind of humanoid tech art style, right? Or presentation. I'm not that into it, but something about Anime Mutation always had me interested. And I covered it on the channel. The developer reached out and was like, "Hey, we appreciate your coverage and everything. Do you want to check it out?" I was like, "I mean, let's do it." And so I've been checking it out, and I really enjoy it. The story is very RPG, like, and what I mean by that is there's plenty of text.
Yeah, I was about to say
There's
text heavy, huh?
There's a lot going on, and it's good for if you want that. All of it's skippable, and I don't think it takes away from the gameplay if you want to skip the story. I've been following along as best I can. It's a lot of like there's this secret illness and you have it and other people are getting it and you got to figure out how to maybe cure it, but then your brother had found a cure possibly, but he's missing because there's like a gang that caught wind of it or whatever, and that's like the TLDR of the beginning of the story, basically.
Hmm.
There's more nuance to it. It's good, but I know there are people out there who do skip story, and I'm not judging you. And if you're one of those people, it's fine. The gameplay is still very good without it. The art style is amazing. It's some of the prettiest pixel art I've seen in quite some time, and that's saying a lot because I also think Go Go Pogo Girl's pixel art's really good. Animutationum's pixel art is just amazing. I posted a really small video of my time with that game where all I did was just stand in one area and I just stared at the neon lights changing and the water going by. And it's like this pixel art. It's so beautiful. And the switch between 2D and 3D, when games do it well, it's good. And when games don't do it well, it's annoying in my experience with games that switch between 2D and 3D. This
Yeah,
game this
same.
game was fun because it boiled down 3D and 2D to the strengths. So 3D is your exploration. You're going around to different cities, you're talking to people, you're going into shops, you're going there's one part where you go into a club, right? You're talking to people like I said before, it's very exploratory and you get side quests. That's where you get a lot of your side quests is from the 3D exploration side of the RPG. The
Hmm.
2D side of the RPG is combat and platforming, which I think is to its strength because 2D platforming, I think, is not easy to do, but I think it's easier to make satisfying than 3D platforming. And that's coming from someone who 3D platformers are probably their favorite genre. I know I make plenty of videos on that, and I don't apologize. I will be making a ton more. But 2D platforming, it's easier, I think, to make at least on a base level satisfying. It's harder to make egregiously bad. And so the platforming here is good. There's some chase sequences, and the fighting is satisfying. It is a bit button mashy, but I like button mashy combat. Like I'm not
Hmm.
somebody who's like, man, I really need my combat to be like it's a professional fighting game.
Yeah,
I need to put
need to sweat my butt off with the most basic actions. Yeah.
yeah, and if I need to memorize all these combos and all these different combinations of buttons to get the right amount of damage and this and that. And I'm like, sometimes you just kind of want to mash buttons for a while, Like, and that's sort of me. Maybe I'm just not smart enough for the fighting game mechanics and stuff. And, that's probably true. But, there's a lot more in Annual Mutationum that I want to spend time with. I want to divide my time up evenly. I want to do boss battles. I want to do exploration. And so the fact that it's a little button mashy, now that's just saying it's a little bit because there are certain attacks that are better than others. You have a gun for ranged, you have a couple of different swords for different melee attacks. You have different abilities in combat that you can learn over time as you upgrade your skill tree. And so there's still some complexity there. But if you want to button mash a little bit, you can probably get away with it. And so I've been doing, a medium amount of button mashing and trying to understand some of the better moves than others. But the boss fights have been pretty satisfying, especially the first one I really liked because it's this like chase sequence and then it's a fighting sequence with some different phases and stuff. Um, there's like parrying and dodge rolling. There's blocking. But the thing about blocking is this I haven't felt the need to block an attack one time because I just parry. Like I just parry all
Yeah.
the attacks. So it's there if you want it. I don't think that it's necessarily something that you're probably going to use a lot, but it's there. And I think it's probably better that it's there in case you want to do a different kind of playstyle. And with that playstyle, you can upgrade your weapon. So if you want to do a little bit more range stuff, you can purchase a different gun or upgrade your gun over time. Same thing with the swords. And I think the best part of Animutationum is its presentation, and that's not being reductive to the other aspects of the game. It's just so pretty to look at. the pixel art and the switching from 3D to 2D, it's really cool. If you like Neon and you like Cyberpunk, I think it's a game you should definitely check out. If you don't, look at footage of it first, and then kind of judge from there. But I still recommend it overall. Yeah, I've had a good time with it. I'm about 3-ish hours in, and I have a lot of time left to go. So this is going to be one that I'm not going to try and go through as quickly as I can. It's going to be a game that I play an hour here, an hour there, and I play some other games in between because I'm just not like a big like time sink into an RPG guy. Like the last game like that I did was Breath of the Wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not that kind of person. I like the shorter games. I like the more immediate kind of beginning to end stuff because I like kind of it's back to the backlog discussion. I like the
Yeah.
sense of accomplishment of like finishing a game. I will finish Animutation, but it's going to be a while. But I definitely still recommend it. And they are adding some patches. They're taking feedback. I know there was a couple of issues with translation. None of it
Mm-hmm.
bothered me. Like, really, it was more like sometimes the speaking didn't necessarily perfectly line up with the text, but not in a grammatical way or a spelling way. There would just be like maybe an extra word added onto the subtitle or something like that. Didn't really bother me, but they are working on a patch for that. Because I could see it bothering some people who are they want it to be a one-to-one thing, and it's probably a reasonable expectation. So the patch is coming soon, and I would still check it out. It's been a fun time for me so far.
That's wow. There's some solid recommendations. The last of which I wasn't familiar with either, which sounds super interesting. The shift in perspectives. So those are some solid games. And yet again, remember, your friend. I've been plugging his Twitter, but his YouTube is just as good, if not better. If you need any indie game recommendation, if you have the opposite problem that me and Jacob have, and you don't know what to play, instead of having too much to play, his should be the one-stop shop for you. Literally, I don't watch any other indie game YouTubers at all anymore because Jacob's videos are so good. Like, legitimately, I've just naturally kind of just fallen off with the rest of the creators. And so, and yes, I'm a little bit biased, but I promise you that was already happening before I got to know him. So go check out his channel. And like he said, he's covered some of those games in his videos already. But as far as what I'm playing on mobile specifically, I don't know if you're familiar with this series or not, but I've been a fan ever since the first one. Serialum Ultimate. Now, this is the newest installment in the Serialum series. And so there's Serialum 1, 2, 3, and now Ultimate. And so the best way to describe these games is it's a monster collector, kind of similar to Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei, if you're familiar with that series. But I would say it kind of leans more into the Shin Megami Tensei difficulty of battles and how strategic you do have to be with your team composition, what attacks you use, and when you actually use them, as well as a little bit of the Pokemon aspects of breeding certain Pokemon together. But in this one, you're breeding monsters together and they will create a completely new monster. So it's not just evolving a monster, you are discovering new ones as you go. So you're collecting or capturing these monsters on your travels, and then you're breeding them to create new ones that you aren't going to encounter in the wild. And if you're a statistics junkie, if you really appreciate delving deep into fleshing out your team, making them as efficient as possible when it comes to certain strategies, this is your game. This game is endless too. It's very hard to describe how everything works, but you can literally endlessly level, endlessly grind. It is extremely addicting. I'm a huge Shin Megami Tensei fan, and this really scratches that itch. As far as monsters collectors go, I think this is probably, unless you're going for a straight Pokemon ripoff, this is the best monster collecting RPG on mobile to date. That pretty much a Pokemon game. Really well done one, but yeah, Serialum Ultimate, definitely check it out if anything I've said interests you at all. And another one that's been sucking up my time as of recently, we already mentioned Night Skate. That's just basically the game I play in between games or when I have a minute or two there. Highly recommend. I also really enjoyed, and I posted a review of this, so some of you may have already heard my thoughts on this, but Candy Disaster, which originally was available on Steam before it came to mobile. It's a tower defense game, which I wasn't really expecting, with really cutesy 3D graphics, very stylized, definitely has an art style all of its own, really good, really polished visuals and sound design, all in all. But it is one of my favorite tower defense games of all time now already. I kind of compare pretty much any tower defense game to Dungeon Warfare 1 and 2. I think those are two of the best tower defense games ever made. And Candy Disaster really holds its own. It slowly introduces new traps, and these traps are really goofy, really weird. You can really create some unique synergies and some unique scenarios to prevent enemies from getting to your portal, so to speak. And it always introduces something new every single level. So you're never getting stale. You always have to use new strategies. You can't just stick to one strategy. You're constantly getting new traps to play around with. And it really does remind me of Dungeon Warfare 1 and 2 because you can't just have an unlimited selection of traps. You have to select certain traps for a level. So you kind of scope out the level or scout out the level, see the layout, see where enemies are going to be going, and then you can select your traps and then enter the level, and you're committed with the traps that you've already put into your arsenal, so to speak. So definitely a solid tower defense game. As far as mobile goes, it's top 5 for sure in my personal experience. Definitely check it out. There is a Steam version as well, as far as I know, if you would prefer to play it there. But tower defense games play beautifully on mobile, so don't hesitate. Another one, Battle Alliance. This one was a 99-cent game, obviously indie developed, has a little indie charm to it with its visuals and sound design and stuff. Very small, and at first I thought it was kind of like a Advance Wars clone, if you're familiar with that series, or a Fire Emblem clone. It's not. It's a tower defense game with kind of just the classic war drapery, so to speak. And it's actually pretty solid so far. It's in portrait mode, which I really do appreciate as well. I actually prefer portrait mode games on mobile. And so this is a really cool portrait mode tower defense game. I still haven't spent too much time with it, but pleasantly surprised. And for 99 cents, and it's a premium experience, and to support an indie developer with a lot of talent as well as potential, no brainer in my opinion. So that was Battle Alliance. I'm trying to think. Let me check out my list one more time. Shift Shaft. I just posted a review for this one. This is a take on the match 3 genre, where you play as a miner and you're mining specific ores and killing specific enemies in order to progress deeper into the mine. And it's basically, it is a roguelike, and you're just trying to go as deep as possible before you die, and then you begin again. But there's some continuous progression mechanics where you can spend crystals that you already got during your previous run on permanent upgrades, such as better luck or evasiveness, or maybe you do more damage, stuff like that, so that you can delve even deeper in your subsequent runs. And so what makes this one so unique, though, match 3s are everywhere, but what makes this one unique is that you can turn the entire board clockwise or counterclockwise. Then you tap on a group of ores that are of the same color, and those will disappear, and then more ores and more board pieces will drop from the top of the screen. So you kind of use gravity to your advantage, and you have to turn the board in order to do so, which gives it a completely unique flavor. It's very clever. I don't think I've ever seen it done before, which it's so natural that it's almost shocking that I haven't seen this done before, at least on mobile, to my experience. And it is so good. It's a little bit janky with its sound design. There's no sound effects currently, but the developer informed me that they had a bug that they had to remove sounds altogether to fix. And so they're working on it. This game has a ton of potential. It's $2.99, definitely worth it for any match 3 fans whatsoever. And I'm a match 3 junkie. It's definitely a top genre for me. I'm always trying new ones out. And that's one of the best ones I've tried in recent memory, especially after the heartbreak that is Puzzle Quest 3. Very disappointed in that one after such a long wait, but that's besides the point. Now, as far as non-mobile games go, of course, I'm playing Apex Legends, but we can get into that in the next subject we're talking about. Elden Ring, I caved, finally. I'm not a Souls fan. I've played Dark Souls. I've given it a try. I actually kind of did like Bloodborne, but I didn't stick with it for too long. I really loved the atmosphere, the art style of the game, just how immersive it was, just with the sound design and the art style and everything. So I did like Bloodborne, but I saw Elden Ring. I watched Dr. Disrespect's playthrough of it, and I was just watching every single upload about him playing Elden Ring, and I was like, man, this game looks good. A couple of my friends got it. They are loving it. They're pouring hours into it. TikTok flooded with Elden Ring memes and videos and stuff. Obviously, the game is extremely successful with gamers and reviewers alike. Finally took the plunge. I've streamed the game twice, played for about 3 hours total, and it really is everything that they are saying it is. It's an incredible open world game, one of the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. Has an insanely good exploration aspect to it where you just have this sense of discovery every second that you're traversing the area. It's the epitome of, oh, I'm going to do this quest. And on the way to that quest, you're like, oh, wow, this is something new. I'm going to explore this for a second. Or another side quest. Wow, that sounds interesting. And you're constantly getting sidetracked, but it's the good kind of sidetracked. And you're just discovering new things, experiencing new things. Very rewarding game. It's not as hard as everyone's saying it is. I feel like it is a little bit more forgiving because there's kind of a level up factor of making yourself stronger, and then you can return to previous areas that you couldn't beat, and maybe you could just completely roll over a boss in that way. So it's as difficult as you want it to be, and the bosses are just gnarly. The character designs, everything about the game, it is A1. Like, as far as my 3 hours of gameplay go, like, I haven't done much just because I've been exploring so much, and then also the difficult bosses. But when you beat a boss, it is a one-of-a-kind feeling when you beat a boss in Elden Ring. So it's definitely sunk its teeth into me. The hype is real. And what I found interesting is with new-gen consoles specifically, the game is still $60 instead of the new $70 price tag that most next-gen games have, which I thought was a really cool added touch by the developers themselves or the publisher or whoever is responsible for that. But that's currently everything I'm playing right now. Not a lot, as Jacob probably can attest. We're basically playing what we're covering most of the time, or at least looking at what we're covering most of the time. So those are the only things I've been playing off stream, so to speak, or off YouTube. But like I mentioned, Apex Legends is always a staple for me, and Apex Mobile is coming out soon. What are your thoughts on that, Jacob?
Well, it'll be really interesting between the both of us because you still play Apex Legends and you've played a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I played a lot of it at one point and then I stopped playing. But I will always have a fondness for Apex Legends. I really mostly just stopped playing because A, I didn't have a squad, and B, I kind of got to the point where that was all I was playing. And so I felt like I needed to take a step away from it for a bit. If I ever got a squad again, I would be willing to download it. You'll have to wait for me to download that gigantic game, but then once I do, I'm sure I will be fine. But, I mean, you'll have to carry me and everything, that's fine. Real quick, who is your favorite legend?
So I main, so to speak, Rampart. I definitely have the most kills with her, the most experience with her. And I chose her when she was very unpopular. She's still unpopular to this day. But I started playing end of season 7. And so I think she was the new character before that season. So in season 6, if I'm not mistaken. And her whole deal is she places these ramped up walls, which you can shoot through to up your damage. And they provide a little bit of cover. But they take a while to deploy. And then originally her character had a turret that would take forever to set up. But once you set it up, and then you'd have to wait for it to spin up before you could actually fire with any accuracy whatsoever. And so everything was very situational with her. Uh, and her ultimate was practically worthless unless you used it, um, like in anticipation of a team coming around the corner, or she was kind of a campy character, but I saw that character. She's very unpopular. Everyone hates her, and I was just like, I'm kind of weird. I like the unpopular characters. I'm probably a hipster when it comes to this, but I like trying to do well with what people deem to be bad or deem to be odd. And so that's why I started maining her, and they've given her a rework. I think she's far better now. Her ult, you can carry it around now, carry the turret, so you can use it in far more situations. Her amped walls have been given more health since then too. So she's very viable, and so that's who I main. But who did you main back in the day?
So the character I play the most of, I tried to play as many legends as I could, but I had probably a few that I always kind of cycled between depending on the update. Before I get into that, I do want to mention with Rampart, I was playing when Rampart was added, and that turret was so broken at the beginning. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. People would put it on vehicles and just
On
float.
Crypto's drone, I saw
Yeah,
at
the
one
people would
point. That's
float through.
crazy.
They would just float through the map, destroy everyone, and people were so angry. I thought it was funny. Like, if
Oh
somebody
man.
killed me just, like, floating around with a turret, I thought it was hilarious because I come from an era where we could build turrets under the ground in Team Fortress 2. Like,
Hmm.
just stupid stuff, just and breaking the game was, like, almost encouraged. It's why I love Risk of Rain 2 so much, which shout out to Risk of Rain 2. Just had a major update. If anybody wants to squad up with me in that, I love that game because it is a third person roguelike that pretty much encourages you to cheese. So it's right up my alley. I love cheesing games, so there you go. Now, the legends that I played the most of, Bloodhound for sure. I mean, I would
Classic.
say the legend I played the most was Bloodhound because like I don't have the best eyesight, and so having the reveal was just so pivotal to me not being terrible.
Hmm.
And used in the right way, like he's almost OP. Like to just be able to, especially depending on the map, being able to reveal full teams and buildings, and his ult is really good, or their ult rather is really good.
Yeah.
Um, and their backstory is interesting. So I kind of really enjoyed that character a lot. Now, a couple of other characters I cycled in between. I love Caustic.
Oh yeah.
Um, I mean, just for the sheer fun and like just kind of dopamine rush of just throwing those fart traps down. Like, it's just and for those who aren't familiar with Apex Legends, it's supposed to be like noxious gas, but the way it looks, it just looks like farts. Like you're
Just
just
straight up bright green.
you're just throwing farts down and your ultimate is a giant fart. Like he's the Wario of Apex Legends.
It's so true. And
Yeah.
players hate him too, but
Yeah.
he is indeed fun to play, and he's very, very powerful in ranked too.
I
So
loved like trapping people in a building with the fart traps and then
yeah.
waiting for them to open the door so I could throw my ult in. And
Hmm.
it's just the most trolly character. I love it. Um, he's kind of slow. But I mean, and it's cool to like you can throw your fart traps on vehicles and stuff too. And it's just a fun character. I don't know if he's like necessarily the best character to use, but man, when you get a full squad not knowing what they're about to walk into, it is some of the highest highs I've had playing Apex Legends.
I think
And
that's what's
then
brilliant, by the way, about Apex Legends is like you're like, I don't know if he's the best, but the key is in public matches, every character is viable. Like
right.
you really, unless you're in the very highest ranks of ranked, then you do not need to worry about who you play almost at all. And
Mhm.
so that's really special. The game is surprisingly balanced with how much it has going on.
That's right. And then I would say the other characters that I used were probably the vertical characters like Horizon. Because I
Same.
got to use
Maybe.
Horizon when she was first added, where you can kind of like chill on top of the,
Oh yeah, before it
vertical
kicks you
thing.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like so that was kind of fun to use that. I think her ult is cool. I'm pretty bad with her ult, but I had a squad mate for a little while who was amazing with Horizon's ult. Like,
Hmm.
that would be the one time where I'd be like, okay, I'll play like Loba or something. Like you play Horizon, go for it, because they would just nail the ult every time. Like me, man, my ult with Horizon felt like Shaquille O'Neal at the free throw line. It was just the intent was right. Like, but it would just bounce off a piece of geometry that I wasn't expecting or whatever, like, or it didn't arc the way I thought it would, and I'd have to apologize and be like, "Sorry, team," you know, or I would
Hmm.
only get like one person on the team. Um, just I when it hit, it was great, but I missed a lot with the ult, and I played a little bit of Valkyrie.
She is so good.
Yeah, Valkyrie's it's so nice to just reposition. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's such a good tactical move to be able to reposition your team and to get better verticality and things like that. More high ground, obviously, is such a big thing in Apex Legends. Being able to see.
She's a crutch in ranked now because of her
Mhm.
ultimate too. She is just so useful. She can scan beacons. She can reposition your entire team regardless of where you're at on the map to get inside ring and get the best spot possible. While you're in midair, your entire team has a scan of everybody who's on the ground, so you don't get taken by surprise. You have a jetpack that you can reach places in an instant where other characters cannot, and your tactical doesn't have a cooldown as long as you're managing your fuel respectfully. Ridiculous.
Yep.
Crazy.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, there were some characters I definitely didn't use, but the last character I used before I quit was Seer, because Seer had been recently
Oh,
added.
I was wondering. I was curious. Yeah.
Seer was broken
Oh,
when they were
100%. I
added,
was playing
like
during that time. Yeah.
100%, and that's why everyone was playing as Seer, and I was definitely one of them. It was like the character that pulled me away from Bloodhound. But then after some patches and stuff, it felt like Bloodhound was at least more reliable for
Mhm.
revealing teams and stuff. So again, with my not great eyesight, Bloodhound was really pivotal for that. And then like the nice thing about Apex is like you said about the characters, I think also applies to the weapons, where
Oh, 100%. Yep.
there are some weapons you definitely don't want to use in ranked, but like in pubs, man, I would just use whatever. Like when I don't know if it is again, but when the triple take was everywhere,
It's still kind of nasty.
I
Yeah.
loved it because it's basically a decent enough sniper rifle and also a like
Shotgun.
yeah, it's like an almost average shotgun. So like you pair that with like an R99 or an R301 or something like that, and like you're
Hmm.
good to go. Or one of the heavy guns like the what was it? The Spitfire was really popular when
Or
I
the
was playing.
flatline.
The
Yeah.
Flatline, underrated when I was
Hmm.
playing. I feel like everyone was using the Spitfire, and I get it because it was really good. But even the energy guns, like, those were fun. Um
I miss the Volt so much. It's in the care package right now, so it's not floor loot.
oh,
And the Volt is
interesting.
a great little weapon.
Yeah, the
Very
Volt was
good.
fun. The Volt was fun when I used it. Yeah, so
Hmm.
there's a little bit for everybody. Pubs is a exercise in patience and in sometimes knowing when to mute everything. Uh Especially on PC. I don't know how the console experience is with pubs, but on PC, like every once in a while you'll get an amazing group going on, but then you get a wave of toxicity and you're just like, oh, I gotta mute these people again. Or just people who want to just like be a hero all the time,
Mm.
like you get this a lot. You'll get the one player who will be a hero, won't tell you that they're about to do it, and then go try to 1v3, get completely slapped, and then start arguing like you were the problem. Like, "Why didn't you back me up?" I'm like, "You didn't say anything. You were in a
Yeah.
terrible position. They saw
Yeah.
you coming up to them, and then you're yelling at us after you got destroyed." Like, that happened so much, um, in pubs, but when you get a good team, it is magic. It is a magical game, and I think for mobile, I've seen a little bit of footage for mobile. It's Apex. Like, it's
Yeah.
Apex Legends, and it's a thing that I was a little worried about because, look, I like Rocket League Sideswipe, but I think a lot of people were hoping for Rocket League. I mean, I
Yeah.
know I
And it
was,
could have
like,
easily been done too. That's what I was shocked
it
that
runs
they
on the
didn't.
Switch. Like, the Switch is like a 4 or
Hmm.
5-year-old plus, I mean, almost like 7-year-old mobile processor. Like,
Hmm.
with all the new Snapdragon processors, and things like that, Rocket League could have ran it, and even if it ran at only 30, but a smooth 30, I think people would have taken that for
Yeah.
mobile.
I
And
was very disappointed on this subject because when Apex Legends Mobile was first announced, I thought it was going to be a Fortnite mobile type of thing, where Fortnite on mobile was the same exact game as on any other platform. It was cross progression, cross platform play, and I was like, "Oh, this is huge for Apex." Now that Fortnite mobile isn't available on Apple devices anymore, this is going to help Apex tremendously to like take that market that is non-existent now. And then when I found out it was just going to be mobile as its own separate thing, I was a little bit hesitant, to be honest.
right. And it's good. I mean, Sideswipe is good. It's just not what I was hoping. It's a different experience, and it's
Mhm.
totally fine. It's good. It's fun. But, I was hoping for, at least a little bit closer to traditional Rocket League because I really like Rocket League. I can't say I'm very good at it, but I really, really like playing it. And you don't have that issue with Apex. It's definitely Apex.
Yeah, it really is. And what really impresses me is that they're getting way more than PC and console counterparts get right now, at least day one, because they have a team deathmatch mode, they have the arena mode, they have mobile exclusive maps, they have I know their character roster isn't super fleshed out, and I think they're just going to add it over time. It basically has the original characters plus one or two from subsequent seasons on other platforms. They also, yeah, it's crazy how much they're getting day one on mobile. And like you said, it looks like the exact same game, albeit a little bit different UI, but obviously that has to happen with touchscreen controls and stuff like that. But
Yeah, and as I saw an article about this game being available for pre-registration, it's available worldwide for pre-registering, on Android for now, iOS soon, and at the time it said over 7 million people have pre-registered. It's now over 7.5 million,
holy
and
cow.
so the interest is definitely there. I mean, I think I would check it out. Even like I don't think I would play it a ton on mobile, but I just want to see it if my phone can even run it. Like,
Yeah.
just the sheer curiosity of like, can this run on here? Like, and how is it? And so I'm at least curious from that standpoint. So I'll at least give it a couple of matches, I think.
Oh, for sure. I think it has huge potential. And I've seen a lot of the content creators because I used to be pretty heavily into it's a weird niche, but like first person shooters on mobile. That's like how I started streaming originally was playing games like that. And I know there's been a huge gap. It's only been COD Mobile basically, which is a really well done mobile game. But when you play the same game as a content creator or a first person shooter player for what is it like 4 years now? I think it gets old after a while. There needs to be something else to refresh you a little bit. And I think a lot of people are seeing Apex Legends Mobile as being the next COD Mobile. Like it will be on the same level of popularity, same level of quality. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
That's right. And speaking to first person shooters and battle royale games on mobile, I did read that rumors are it looks like Warzone will probably make its way over to
It's true.
mobile, and so that sounds cool. Valorant was another one.
Very excited for that one.
And if Riot doesn't get on it too quickly, I do know that NetEase is making a Valorant like that is coming to mobile because of course that's the thing.
NetEase. Yeah.
You know, you can count on them if there's a first person shooter or a game like Overwatch or something like that, they're gonna take a crack at it. So.
Yep, that's basically NetEase in a nutshell. I swear, it's crazy how fast they crank out clones of other games.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then I think there's also Rogue Company is actually in beta testing right now, which is interesting. I didn't even know it's coming to mobile until an advertisement on Instagram like a week ago, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're testing." Crazy.
I think that would be cool, and I think I'd probably play it. I would play a lot of that on mobile, but I'm so happy you mentioned that because it reminds me of High Res and the ridiculous tangent that I made about Realm Royale the last podcast. Well, it turns out, guess what game is probably making a comeback this year?
No
Realm
way.
Royale. I'm not even kidding. Didn't make it up. Didn't have any knowledge of it before I talked about it on the podcast. But then things started to move a little bit. Hi-Res put up job postings to work on environments and stuff for Realm Royale. And some people were like, is this real? Did they make a mistake? Then people started saying, oh yeah, I interviewed for that job, including a prominent streamer by the name of Thor, who used to play Realm Royale all the time. And he was like, oh yeah, I interviewed for that job. I didn't get it, but they hired someone and they're working on it. Then they later hired him to be a community manager for High Res, which inevitably means he's going to be the CM for Realm Royale. And it looks like what they're going to do is kind of a soft reset. Like, they're not going to break it all down, build it back up kind of thing. They're just going to add a little bit to it. Sometime later this year, they're going to take another crack at it. I don't know if that is due to Rogue Company doing better than expected or not as good as expected, or if that has anything to do with it at all.
I think it's not as good as expected, to be completely honest. It looks like, according to Steam charts, the concurrent player base is like lower than ever. I think they're branching off to mobile to see if the game has any life anywhere. So
that would be my guess as well.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's on Epic as well, but I think the Epic deal was more the Epic exclusivity cash up front type situation.
Exactly.
Much like other battle royales. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a list, and I'm just gonna do it off the top of my head for this podcast because I don't think it's something I could do for a video. Here are a list of battle royales that Realm Royale somehow outlasted without any support. Here we go. Crucible. Do you remember Crucible at all? It was by Amazon, and that thing lasted like a week. Okay?
Yeah.
And there was probably a ton of money put into it, and that game fell on its face almost immediately. The next one is let's see, Radical Heights. That was a battle royale.
Yeah.
The
I 80s
that was
like one.
I think it was Cliff Bleszinski. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Then The Culling 2. It outlasted
that game was a disaster. Holy cow.
Cuisine Royale, which is still technically a thing, but there's a really small player base there.
Yeah.
Speaking of another game that outlasted, Spellbreak.
Man, and it's a shame what happened to that one, to be honest.
I played it when it first released because a lot of Realm people defected to Spellbreak because they were like, it's kind of similar. Like, let's check it out. Spellbreak, I mean, it was a good game. I think it had some of the issues that Realm had, but worse in terms of like Spellbreak's map wasn't good. It just wasn't a good map.
I completely agree.
Completely forgettable. Points of interest, like how are you going to remember it? It all just kind of blended together. And it was too big. The map was way too big.
Took you forever between fights to find people.
That's right. And then I think it was kind of paired together with a style of gameplay that wasn't really like necessarily what people wanted. They wanted the magic, but the gunplay or gauntlet play felt more like an arena shooter. It was very
Yeah, the skill ceiling
twitchy.
was very high.
Yeah, so you just got stomped.
Hmm.
Like you would get stomped by people who were kind of no-lifing the game, and that's okay. But for new people, you'd play against bots, you'd win a game, you'd feel really good, and then you would get slapped. Like, and it
Yeah.
was just really hard for them to kind of work within that gameplay. They added a non-battle royale mode a little bit too late. The game still kind of exists, but developers haven't said anything or posted anything about the game in a long time. And so I think the game is not dead, but pretty close.
Yeah.
And speaking of games like that, The Cycle. There's another battle royale that it outlasted. Now, The Cycle is trying to rebrand as a Tarkov like, which I actually think could be beneficial because
Yeah.
a Tarkov like that's free to play, that's a good selling point.
Huge. Yeah.
Um, but I actually liked The Cycle. So The
Is that the
Cycle,
PVE one as well? Like it has a lot of it's like
yep,
a blend of PVE, PvP.
yep, it was PvEVP
Mm.
where you would have the pre kind of battle royale stuff where you're doing contracts and you know, shooting monsters and that kind of thing. Then you could run into other teams, but then the circle would close and you have to get on the ship, and if you're on the ship you can get away, but it's really hard to get in the ship because everybody's trying to get on this tiny little ship. I thought it was cool. My only issue with that is the movement was almost what I wanted it to be, but it had a really weird slide that I wish was more like Apex's slide.
Yeah.
But that game was good, and that game was by the developers of Spec Ops: The Line. Like,
Oh
so
wow, that's a
yeah,
brilliant game. I did not know
so
that.
so the gunplay was good. The gunplay was good. I just think it was confusing, and it also was like a really early Epic exclusive when there was no ecosystem on the Epic
Hmm.
launcher. So most people didn't even know it existed. And finally, unless I can remember anymore, Hyperscape.
Oh, I'm
It
so sad about Hyperscape. Oh, that's a sore spot for me to this day.
the
I loved
Ubisoft
Hyperscape.
the Ubisoft Battle Royale that looked really cool, that somehow people still didn't know existed. It was really weird. I don't know if the name harmed it or
I think
anything
the
like that.
timing, I think everyone was just burnt out at that point. And especially with Ubisoft, like Ubisoft was on a track record at the time of just churning out what's popular or what would make the most money. And so everyone took Hyperscape as just kind of their version of a cash in on the Battle
Mhm.
Royale genre. But it was far from. It was actually very unique, more arena style shooter with like
Exactly.
heavy emphasis on movement and like movement abilities, and it was just super fast paced, super fun, very high skill ceiling, which also is, I think, part of kind of a detriment to it in the long run. Is kind of similar to what we were talking about with Spellbreak. If you're a new player, you're going to get smacked around for a while until you get
Absolutely.
good at it. But and a little bit like Spellbreak again, the map wasn't super, like the map was beautiful. There was some like unique parts of it, but there wasn't really like landmarks that you could really recognize or anything. And the win condition was so cool. Like when the circle got small enough and the teams were down to a certain amount, then a crown would spawn. And then if your team could get the crown, and since this is so movement heavy, and hold the crown for a certain amount of time, then you win. You don't have to kill everyone else. You just have to have the crown. So it just turns into this huge cat and mouse game, and it's so intense. One of the coolest win conditions of a battle royale I've ever. It was the I was playing that, and then when that petered out, I moved to Apex. Believe it or not, so I very sad to see what happened with that. And
So
another reason it didn't happen, sorry, is that didn't like become successful is there was no content, there was no updates. It
no.
kind of petered out after the first season.
They
So
put all of their effort into like the first week where like
exactly.
streamers were eating good that first week of
Oh
Hyperscape,
yeah.
and then it kind of felt like the marketing budget like kind of ran out a little sooner than they
Hmm.
expected.
Yeah.
and it was to their detriment. It was really difficult. Console took way too long to get out there too.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that hurt it. And but yeah, there's my off the cuff list of battle royales that Realm Royale somehow outlasted without any support and pretty below average at best server support. Um, and so shout out to Realm Royale. It shows that there is a good game in there. I've put hundreds of hours into Realm, and the map is better than Spellbreaks. There are a couple of points of interest that are really good. Um, there's like Fungal Fields, which used to be called Fungal Jungle. That's very distinct look. There's a lumberyard area. There's a couple of castle looking areas. Um, I think where Realm needs to improve is obviously content. Maybe add a new character class. Like they used to have an engineer class, bring that back. And then maybe with the map, I would like a little bit more variation in the outside areas because those aren't very memorable. And maybe shrink the map a little bit because it's not as big as Spellbreak. Like you don't have that much downtime, but you can land in an area and either be the only team or have one other team. And I think like it could be a little bit spicier than that, and I think people would enjoy it. Other than that, just stable servers, a trickle of content. Like I think fans would be okay with a trickle of content. I don't think we need like Paladins has like a huge update every season where it's like new character, new maps, updated maps, tons of cosmetics, battle pass, all that kind of stuff. I don't think Realm fans necessarily need that. I mean, the people who are still playing have gone like 2 years without anything. So, like, just a little bit here and there just to say like, hey, we're still here. We know you exist. We're fans of you. Thank you for sticking with us. And, just don't crunch and just kind of keep a nice steady flow so that some of the content creators can come back. I would play it again. I would 100%. As soon as Realm is updated, I am coming out of retirement because
Ooh, you've heard it here.
like Apex Legends is my favorite first person battle royale, but Realm Royale is my favorite third person battle royale. And I think, like I mentioned before, if you like games like Fortnite, but you hate the Eiffel Tower in 2 seconds building stuff, play Realm Royale. It has more variation in the magic stuff. The Forge is a great system that other games admittedly have adopted, so it doesn't feel as original anymore, but it's still a really good system. And it's a really good game to play in squads because you can kind of like pick your different classes and stuff. And I think if you want a third person game to complement maybe a first person battle royale that you spend more time with, I think Realm Royale is a really good one to check out.
Boom. Well, that is eerie. That's crazy that you manifestation right there. You spoke it into existence, and life is slowly being breathed in to the game.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
if you see even less content from me, it's because Realm came out.
Yeah, the behind the scenes look, way behind the scenes. But wow, we covered everything. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug before we finish this episode?
Sure. So the first thing that I want to plug, as I plugged the previous podcast, is if you have made it to this point, you are amazing, but like subscribe already. Like, what are you doing? Okay. Like, hit the subscribe button, find your alternate Gmail accounts, log into those, hit subscribe again to Mint City. Like, let's keep it going. Okay. So that's the first thing you want to do. The next thing you want to do, if you feel so inclined, if you feel kind enough to do so, it would be great. Head on over to youtube.com/YourFriendJacob and hit the subscribe button and check out one of my videos. My latest video is about upcoming farming RPGs and life sim games. So if you like Stardew Valley, if you like games like that, Animal Crossing, games along that line of genre, you should check out that video because I think it's pretty good. There's some really cool games in there. And I have one video coming out on Monday, which is games of April that I think you should check out. There's some really interesting games that just got announced today that I'm really happy I didn't finish my script for so I can work in. And fingers crossed for a Peglin release date because that's another game I wish was on mobile. is Peglin. If you don't know what Peglin is, look it up. It is a pachinko roguelike. You heard it here. It feels like where Luck Be a Landlord kind of took the sort of slot machine vibe and roguelitified it. Peglin is doing that for like Peggle, So
Interesting.
yeah, it's really, really cool. It's slated for April, doesn't have a concrete release date. I hope I get one soon. I might try to bug the developer to maybe let me know, like, please give me a concrete date so I can put it in the video. And then this is interesting, and I haven't announced this yet, but I'll do it on this podcast, is I'm going to do something I haven't done in a very, very long time. And if I fail, don't worry about it. But I'm going to attempt 2 videos next week.
Oh, wow.
First time, honestly, for the first time since I think the beginning of the channel, I always do like either a video a week or every other week because you should be watching Mint City's content, okay? I don't need to be putting out content all the time, right? Like watch Mint City's channel.
Oh, brother.
You are able to get out high quality content with more regularity than I do. So you can watch Mint City's videos. But I'm going to put out 2 videos next week because I got an advanced look at a game that I cannot talk about yet, but I bring it up here because it is releasing for PC and for mobile. So it does tie in to the mobile theme. That video should be out on Wednesday, and that video is not going to be a list. So it's going to be my first video that isn't a list since my last review, which I think was like November.
I'm excited. That's awesome.
It's going to be me talking about the game, my time with it. They gave me like 10 days to look at it and stuff to really find out if I wanted to talk about it. Shout out to the developer over there who I won't mention because I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that or not.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea how this works. I'm not used to this kind of stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not that level of content creator yet. So I'm not used to knowing like, oh, I can talk about this but can't talk about that. So, but shout out to the developer. You know who you are. You'll find out. So that video, I believe, is going to come out on Wednesday of next week. And I am also going to reveal this, but I'm not promising anything. I'm going to try to maybe do a giveaway there.
Ooh.
So whether it's on YouTube or on Twitter, which is twitter.com/YourFriendJacob, replace the O with a 0 because somebody else has the @ so that's cool. One day I will get it. One day I will track that person down and be like, just give me your Twitter handle. You haven't used Twitter for like 6 years, please. But so I did the best I could, replace the O with a 0 on Twitter, or just go to my YouTube channel in the About section or whatever, and you'll get linked to the Twitter. And the last thing I will plug is I started a Steam Curator page, which what that is if you follow the Steam Curator page and you use Steam, you will get these little mini recommendations for me on your homepage. It's very unobtrusive, and it's just little recommendations, mini reviews, like 2 sentences of games that I've recently played. And it's a nice way for me to kind of review games, but not do a full review because I don't have the time to do a review on every single game I play. So I'll throw it up on the Steam Curator. But you don't have to do all of those. If you do one of them, subscribe on YouTube. On the last podcast, we were at 411 subscribers, and I was through the roof on that. We are now at 762. Quest for 1,000 is on its way. It's still a ways away, but we're on the way there. And if you feel so inclined to help me get one step closer to 1,000, that would be much appreciated after you subscribe to Minty.
Oh, really? Dude, yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited for that video because I saw you tweet about it. That's covering that game that you can't talk about. So that is exciting for mobile, and I'm sure I will cover it on my channel if it's as good as you're saying it is. So thank you for being here again. Thank you for those plugs. Again, subscribe to him. If you like indie games, it's a no-brainer, and you will find that you watch more of his channel than other creators. It's that good. So check it out. And I always harp on the Twitter. Follow his Twitter. I've never had such a useful follow on Twitter in my life, like no joke. So it's really good. Thank you again, Jacob, for being here. Don't forget to leave that like, pop that sub. Feel free to comment down below on anything that we talked about at all, any questions, or any of your thoughts or opinions about anything that we've talked to. You might as well at this point if you've made it literally this far into it. So I appreciate you guys listening, and take it easy.